Nice French name for our boy from Vermont.
Yes. So in this match, what can we expect to see between these players?
Well, from my research, I don't know Mark. He's a new name for me. He comes from Vermont. He's only been playing, as far as I know. We only have records for him from 2013. He hasn't played in a whack of tournaments, but he's played. He's held his own. He has not had the toughest competition yet this tournament. Right now, he's at 13-9. I think his toughest opponent was Joel Wapnick, to whom he lost. But he's clearly holding his own, and it should be an interesting game. But betting person would go with David Eldar, who is just holding his chest and looking like he's nervous. But probably a bit of indigestion, if I know it, David.
Yeah, I think he's just in the moment here right now. Definitely getting ready to get back into game mode. He's feeling pretty comfortable. I talked with him this morning, and basically at this point,
he's leaving the game. You figure he'll come back later.
Mark is just like, what's going on over here?
Mark is, he's, and you can tell he's a new player because he's holding his hand over his head. Those of us who have been playing a long time never had to hold our hands over our head to put our hands into the bag. That rule came about within the last decade, and so habits are hard to break. But Mark is a new player, so he's learned all the good habits. And the hand is still up. I think I think this is a strategy by David Eldar to get Mark's hand tired, and that kind of fatigue, that muscle fatigue, might then lead to brain fag, as we call it in my profession, but brain fatigue. Look at Mark. He's like a deer in headlights. Look at that look on his face. Oh my goodness, it's already starting to work. The David Eldar effect. Now they must be just waiting on some instructions. I'll also be giving you updates as far as I can on the OLW board. Let's see who's playing in that game. I'm going to assume it's going to be, we're going to see a lot of David Gibson today, as long as he keeps winning. That board has not yet been put up, so they're obviously having some difficulties, or maybe someone's taking a bathroom break. And here we go. Mark is getting ready to go. David has tweeted his last tweet. He's putting his phone back into his pocket. And we will get you the first rack. Here we go. NRT is a nice start. Couldn't be much better, as long as he gets another vowel. And he does not, so I'm going to assume we're going to see plant or something of that nature go down. Leaving the very, very dangerous supplant front extension. I'm just joking. This is not Jesse and mine's first dictionary, so our brilliance will be slightly delayed.
I think in either dictionary here with David's rack, he's not looking ideal.
A less than ideal rack.
Not quite pumpkin. Another N would be ideal for that.
Let's see, we'll get a little bit of help. Puku is a perfectly lovely word that will not go down. Just giving you some ideas of some Collins words that are playable, that are available on his rack. He's got Umiak, which would not be a good play. Nobody ever wants to have VUU on their rack, ever. Nobody. The V and U are very, very clunky. Although, don't you find, Jesse, there's a bunch of 8-letter words with like 2 U's and a V. Sometimes 2 U's and a V is better than 1 V and a U. So the question is, does David pass? Does he play through it? I think he'll probably play through it. He's got... no, Pulik is not a very good play either, because it's one away from the triple. Nothing really interesting through that L. Pikul is another possibility. That's an anagram of Pulik. Pikul might be a good play, saving Vum, which actually is a word. And it takes an O in front. Not the nicest rack to start your game with. Nothing with through that N of any interest whatsoever. He's got 2 pick as well, but once he's playing those 4 tiles, he might as well play Pikul. Or, very reasonable, passing. And by passing, I mean
Exchanging, of course.
tiles,
Yeah. You'd gotta wonder if he'd keep anything, really, if he were to exchange at this point in time.
Now he can play Puku over plant, putting the U over the P, opening up the triple and saving Vim. But he's going to do Pikul as expected.
And it also leaves him Vum next turn there, assuming he,
Right, he sets
can
himself
balance
right up.
there. Yeah.
Oh. So here you have a situation where, you know, you want to get rid of RN.
And given past experience and his current rating, it's actually quite possible and quite likely he's going to go for a 2-letter play here.
I would, yeah, I would play UR, UR, which is Collins only and Rad. The K is already gone. The most dangerous spot, letter as far as I know, underneath Ran would be rank. And the K is gone, so he doesn't run that risk. Yeah, that's the most dangerous tile, and it's gone. Early on in the game, it's not terrible to balance your rack, and certainly with 1-point tiles, you're not going to score big regardless, so why break up your rack? Let's see what Quackle has to say about this turn. Quackle likes Ran. I haven't done any iterations, but it seems very, very reasonable. He might also consider just playing Rin in case he thinks David might have been setting himself up for an X play, for example. He did take his time, David, so that might indicate to Mark that he might be trying to set himself up.
I see Aaron Bader in the chat here. Hello, Aaron. We do like the rotating board feature as well. Makes it much easier for us to see how we would potentially play. There are some players who do play upside down and don't bother turning the board. I am certainly not one of those people, and I don't think Robin is either. So, Prent he's going for. So he's decided to play a few more letters than maybe we would have liked, but his leave is
well, you really have to. I have to question that. He must know David's reputation and his knowledge of words. When you have the good rack, obviously David took his time. He's getting off PKU. He doesn't have a great rack. When you've got good stuff, you want to make sure that you keep good stuff for yourself, and you don't want to open the board for somebody of David's caliber. Has he even picked his tiles? Hopefully they're hopefully there's face down on the table somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's
read his hand, actually, it looks like. So he's one of everyone's got a different style of grabbing tiles. Right. He's one of those that keeps them in his hand, it looks like, and then puts them down after.
The passive-aggressive style, love that. Okay,
yeah.
So here comes the SU. Oh, so he got a little lucky there. Okay.
It's close to feed bag, not quite.
So we are on Mark's turn, are we not? And we have Saurians through the A. And he has Cenarius as well. So David did not block either of his bingo lanes, and we'll see what this man is made of, because he's a new player for us. Have you seen him before, Jesse?
I think I've actually played him once. I
There we
can't
go.
remember, but yeah, he's a relative newcomer here.
He does play both dictionaries. We have ratings for him in both Collins and OWL. Saurian is good in ours. They're both good, actually.
So he's played Saurians. And then to answer a few questions in the chat, Admiral, yes, there is a timer on each side. Each player has 25 minutes per side per game, so you can use as much time or as little time as you like on each turn, but once you've used more than 25 minutes of your own time in a game, then you lose 10 points for each additional minute that you have gone overtime in
fact, we are
each game.
supposed to be getting a time function. As I look over with batting my eyelashes at my lovely Rashad here, who promised it to me for the second term game, but he's working hard on it, and we will get it very soon for you. We recognize also the benefit of having the clock available to everybody to watch. So we're on that, guys. We will get it to you.
Mark hasn't drawn, so it looks like David might actually be holding the play.
It's only a 5-point. Yeah, he's going to go challenge it. So for people out there who don't know the difference in the challenge rule between OWL and Collins, we're playing Collins right now. In Collins, the onus is on the player to get it right, because the person who challenges it only risks losing 5 points for getting it wrong. In OWL, the person risks losing their turn, which is a huge deficit. Here, it's only a 5-point deficit. So even if, and in this case, what's going to happen is it's going to come back acceptable. David only loses 5 points, or rather, what we do is Mark gains 5 points, but David gets to have his turn nonetheless. So he's only risked 5 points. So generally, when you don't know the word in Collins, it really makes more sense to challenge than not, unless you're in a close end game where 5 points might actually determine who wins the game. So early in the game, this is absolutely the right thing to do, to challenge, if he's not 100% sure. Plus, I don't think David is above not having huge respect yet for Mark, because he doesn't know him. So it also could be just a poker thing, as in, I'm going to be challenging you, and that might have an effect on Mark's thinking about what type of words he's going to play. I wouldn't put it past David to have done that on purpose.
And then to answer another question here, Admiral, yes, there actually is different championships in Europe. In fact, later this month, the World Scrabble Championship is happening in France, and there are multiple languages that are going to be featured in the Scrabble games there. The English World Championship is happening there, and that's the main event that, of course, we'll be a part of as the commentary team. But there's also going to be French and Spanish, Catalan, Norwegian, and German are some of the other languages being featured. So there's quite
Did
a
you
few
mention English?
different. Yes, I did. Yes. And for English Scrabble played outside of North America, for anyone just joining and unsure, when we've talked about Collins, that is a word source used outside of North America primarily. And then here in North America, there is the OWL, or TWL as it's called sometimes, and it's got less words in it, and it's a little bit more North America-centric in its nature, but it's with words from around the world.
Speaking of that, I just learned that plant takes an A after it. And if David wants to get rid of one of his extra A's, get rid of the F, which is always a bit of a clunky tile, and especially in conjunction with a B, he might want to play something like fag and planta and save a very nice A, B, D, E rack. Since we're doing 14 things at the same time, I'm not sure if Jesse mentioned this, but he and I will both be in Lille, France. We'll be there actually for 10 full days of commentary and TV presenting. So we'll get you a link for that, or come look for it online, and we'll be your hosts for 10 days of incredible Scrabble. There we go. Fab is another choice as well. Fab and fag. Fab is a perfectly fine play. Some might even call it fab. I like the B. What do you think about the B? What's your relationship with B, Jesse?
Um, B and G, I can understand here in both cases. I don't think they mix super well when you're looking for something longer. I would be preferential, maybe to the B in this case, but B and G
To hold
in
on to
terms
it
of
or to play it?
uh, I would probably play. I'd probably play the G here. I don't think
I
the
would
G
have
is
played the G
quite
too.
as
Yep.
synergic, but they're both not ideal.
You know, everyone has their favorite tiles. You know, for the longest time, I must have been living in delusion land because the longest time I really enjoyed the V. And then I realized how wrong I was.
And Pen, yes, Mark is more the dark horse one out of the two here. It's it's not really in terms of probability going to be his game, but you never know. He's done pretty well. There's a reason he's on board one right now, so he's doing the right things to get here. It would show considerably that he's been studying and really working on getting better if he does end up finding Encheer and Plantar and Fey.
That's a great word. But I'm learning that this Collins dictionary is almost impossible to master. We've seen David make plenty of misses himself, and he knows it better probably than just maybe Joel Wapnick knows it very. You know, there's a bunch of people who know it quite well, but David does play it every single time he plays Scrabble, and he's missed some bingos that I was kind of surprised, and Joel was right when he says like it's just impossible to know everything. So a word like encheer, you know, I think it's going to be hit or miss for a lot of. No, yeah, he doesn't know it. Planté, interesting. That is an acceptable word, planté. Not terrible. I mean, you know, if you don't know the bingo, actually quite nice play, saving very, very lovely ENR.
I see a couple of questions here. Octopus, yes, meta is a word in Scrabble that could be played. And Admiral, yes, there are variations of words allowed. Both forms of color work.
Yeah.
With the one with the U, one without. As Canadians, of course, we are preferential to the U spelling, but
Well, it's a great
both work.
question because it really can be quite frustrating until the dictionary committee gets around to including some of these Canadian and British spellings. For the longest time, honoree, Honoree, was the only acceptable spelling of it. And then I remember one tournament where I actually played honoree with the U, and it was not acceptable, which just seems so random and frankly anti-Canadian. But in the last upgrade of the dictionary, they did add honoree, and now you can be an honoree in Canada and Britain.
And welcome to Benjamin Bloom. Yes, we
Oh.
are switching between divisions for each round. So we did have a TWL game on board one last round. It's Collins this round, and we're going back and forth each round.
And you know what? I'm just checking the dictionary, and I'm wrong. I thought it was added. I think there's another word I'm thinking of with a U that wasn't good before. So don't play it. I'm very grateful to all of you not having your dictionaries open to prove me wrong so quickly. All right, we got DFI come down. Seemed like a pretty easy choice. Quackle liked edify off of each instead, but this is a bit safer for 2 less points.
Top Deck, that's a great question. We play in English when we play this game, but there are words that are accepted from other languages, but that's due to the nature of the words. For example, the word portmanteau that we know from French,
That was portmanteau for people not
Yeah.
from Canada.
That word is a French word in nature, but it is used to describe two words that are blended together to make one word, and we don't really have a specific word in English for that, so that's brought into the English Scrabble dictionary as acceptable for play. Something a little easier like adieu or adios in Spanish, those also work. They're considered ways of saying goodbye that are anglicized.
Thank you, Cokes. Mods are doing a great job. We encourage you to encourage us and say wonderful things about us. and we'll mention your name. So thanks, Cokes. Cokes. We don't have any prizes to give you, however. just our brilliant words.
So Aji has, or Ahi, I'm not sure because I forget the definition of this word.
Did I ever tell you my Hefe story? That I pronounce Jeef in front of the venerable Susie Teekert
Oh
from
boy.
Florida.
Yes,
And she wasted no time laughing and correcting me. I love Susie. Thank you, Susie, for correcting me.
Hank, that's good point there. English, more English than U.S. English. That's hard to say like 10 times fast. No, in terms of the Scrabble dictionary, without getting too complicated in terms of politics, there are two dictionaries that are used, depending on where you play English Scrabble in the world. But for North American play, there is a smaller dictionary source that focuses more on North American variants of English, whereas the English dictionary used in the rest of the world is a little more inclusive with English variations from all over the world. So for example, there are words in South African English that work in the bigger English dictionary that have come from other languages. For example, braai, which would be B-R-A-A-I, that one works only in Collins, and that's a word that's borrowed from Afrikaans into South African English to talk about a barbecue, a specific type of outdoor barbecue. So that would be one example of a word that comes from another language, but it is used in English Scrabble because it's also used in South African English, and that the Collins word source is inclusive of words like this.
So in this last play, where wa went down, he also had the option of playing a nice Scrabble word that's good in both dictionaries, wisha. Wish takes the A at the end, and he could have put it in the same place, but he would have doubled the W and come down to play wisha for 57 points, which would have been 12 extra points. Might have been a good thing to do so early in the game, although there's only one S left. So he might have decided to hold on to it.
So Eldar has Digamis on his rack. The question is, of course, if it goes down anywhere, but that's one option.
Digamis? Yeah,
Yes.
I don't think he does right now. It's a bit of a closed board. Funnily, that O hook, if you notice there is not a single O on the board. That O hook for Vum has remained open because not one person has picked up one of the 8 O's, which is quite astonishing. Now, Mark Francois is ahead. He's finding himself ahead against this machine called David Eldar. So he's got to think, how can I balance my rack and not open the board too much for him? So hopefully, for his sake, he does not give David an S hook.
We'll try and get back to the chat as we're able here. We're just going through several screens, looking at the board further. Actually, there is a spot for Digamis. Oh, and I see someone in the chat has just written that as well. Yeah, we're looking at the same spot, IDE, Digamis, and SEN.
Oh, there you go. You're right.
So that would go down their next turn, assuming it's not blocked.
And I have a feeling it might go down. Unless, well,
It is possible on this rack that he would play something like nene, not the whip and the nene, but the word for the animal. NITEF, NY,
Right.
and nene. I don't know if it's the best play, but it's possible he'd play it because it does score a decent amount of points.
I am not getting the dictionary that I want for some reason.
Yeah, Peng, the rack there has a little bit too much of some good things. You know, an R, an E, and an N on their own, or even 2 E's is okay, but all of those together, they don't work out the best. Okay, so he's played Ren in that spot, which does accomplish the same thing of
That's what I was going to suggest.
blocking
Yeah.
Digamis there.
Wow, that worked out really well.
Admiral, yes, any words including swear words are allowed, so for the sake of being kind, I'm not going to say any of them on the air, but you can use your imagination. There are some some flagrantly offensive words that also work, but they're words, you know, and this is a word game as well as a math game. So if it's a word, as offensive as it is usable.
These jokes are killing me. In a good way or a bad way, Sly Dog? We need to know.
And Deckard, no, that word, which I again will not say on the air, that's not allowed because some of them are still a little bit too slangy. But the words that are decided to be included, they have to show up
Alright.
in several U.S. and Oxford and other college dictionaries. If the words show up for at least several of the dictionaries, then that's usually one of the main bases on which they're included.
So we have a nice suggestion of a word here, a Collins-only word called mesiad, M-E-S-I-A-D, making 3 overlaps with wa. So W-E, ha takes an S, J-A-I is good in Collins, and A-D, so mesiad for 49 points. Alternatively, in the same spot, he can play amide, or even amid, saving the E hook for himself, making haha, which is a noun, and somehow I think it has to do with a fence. I'm going to look that one up, or somebody wants to look it up. I think it has to do with a fence. And jam, so amid, setting himself up with the E hook for amide. But there are a lot of E's left, so it could be quite dangerous. I like amid. There's a very, very dangerous spot. There would have been a very dangerous spot if the F's were still out next to Ren. If somebody had come down with a word like frag or fray to make frit, ref, any. Remember, ny takes an A in front. It also takes an O, I believe.
Oni works as
Oni
well,
is
yes.
good too. Frau. So the F's are gone, but the G is still there. And let's see if anything else.
Admiral, yes, slang is an evolution of language in general. So the issue is whether it's still considered too informal or if it works. For example, the word ad, A-D, is short for advertisement, and it's probably, well, not slang, but it's more informal. But people say ad so often now, as opposed to advertisement, unless they're being super formal, that ad works. And there's other slang words that certainly have become included, but it is a process, in a matter of time.
Somebody asked if we're using a program to solve the best possible solutions. For the most part, we like to actually challenge ourselves, and we'll come up with the ideas on our own. We might look up a certain word because Collins is not our first dictionary, and we want to make sure we get you the best possible suggestions for words. So just to make sure that we're not missing anything. But for the most part, we've been asked to do this for a reason. We're not just pretty faces.
And then what does ich mean? Okay, I'm not sure. There we go. It looks like our friend Aaron Bader has
Yeah, ask
defined
other
it
people
for
in the
us.
meetings.
I would have guessed that it was an interjection for something gross, but it looks like it's actually a word that's a verb. So I guess it's not like yech and all the other ones that are similar.
Oh, don't even try to guess what these words mean. All right, I think David is looking to play something there. Okay.
So he's going for aged and keeping ism.
MIS, yeah. So he is looking, he's now given himself an S hook. Haha, taking an S may not be something that his opponent knows, but again, as I said, the challenge rule is not as onerous for the player, for the challenger, as it is in the other dictionary. He did take away his G, though, hook, which would have gone on to writ to make grit. So that could have been one reason why it took him a little time to make the decision to play the G. But there are 2 still unseen. So I don't think it was a huge sacrifice to do that. And this way, by playing a past tense, he does not give any hooks for his opponent, like a mid would have done that.
And meanwhile, there's some nice options for Mark Francelon, assuming it's not blocked on the top. Ovum plus something like honoree or regioneo is a Collins
well,
only
it's his
word.
turn, so,
Yeah,
he will not be, yeah. So, yeah, he's got roneo, rejoneo, and the vaunted honoree.
Yeah, he's got some options here for sure.
Honorary score 75, as does Rejoneo. Is it how you're the Spanish speaker? How is it?
I'm not sure if it is likely from Spanish. It might not be, but if it is from Spanish, it would be rejoneo.
Rejoneo. Okay. He also has Aerotone off of F and B and Fab to make of and ob for 67. And he has multiple positionings. Because he's got two O's, he can put either of those O's first or second above VUM. And finally, he can play Rejoneo to the DE in Deify to make Rejoneo in that place. But it looks like he's missing the bingos, so he's making a very reasonable play.
It's a good non-bingo play, but unfortunately, yes, the more ideal would naturally have been to bingo here. So just to answer a few questions, Mr. Despair, yes, hook is a letter that you add onto the end or the front of a word to, while you're creating another one. So we kind of have a visual term here to describe that particular move in Scrabble. There are some proper names that work, but not usually because they're proper names. In Collins, yes, as Aaron Bader has pointed out, Jedi is a word that works in Collins, because in the larger word sources.
And in life, man.
Yeah.
And in life,
in
Jedi's
life, for
rule.
Sure. But it's been considered, I guess, a regular noun as opposed to a proper noun, and at least in a larger word source. So.
Oh, you know, David has one of my favorite words in Collins. Can someone look it up for me? Mooi, M-O-O-I. What a great dump.
That one is from Dutch and Afrikaans. It's mooi, kind of is how you say it, and it's something that's beautiful or pretty.
No wonder I liked it. He also has mooli. You know, it's volatile, and that's the beauty of Scrabble. And there you go. Here it goes. You score points, but in the process, you also risk giving up a ton of points to your opponent. And that's the beauty of Scrabble. It's risk and reward all the time. Now, in Collins, unlike OWL, which is the North American dictionary, ovum takes an N in front.
Novum, yeah.
So in Collins, in our the other dictionary, this wouldn't have been as risky. This makes it a tad more. And in fact, he does have an N. He doesn't. Sorry about that. And he can play doesn't off in Collins. DI is good. So there's, and I can't imagine he doesn't know doesn't. So let's see what he does.
Well, DI of course works, so that would be the top lane for that. Backs, yes, we do switch back and forth between TWL and Collins on board one, and if you go to the Twitch channel that this is being broadcast on, that is twitch.tv/GGS live. You can see previous games, and in this case there's just one before this one, and that one was a TWL game. It should be clearly labeled by round number, as well as listing the opponents and the dictionary.
Doesn't is the only playable bingo on multiple, well, just that one place up on top that David just gave him. So this is a gift, and this is, if he doesn't play it, and I'm a little worried that he's not, because that's just something that would have been slapped down pronto quick.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of thing that sometimes happens when you're playing a very, very good player of David's caliber, which is that if you're not 100% sure, you start double questioning yourself. And in fact, David Gibson himself last year, 4 years ago he was telling me, when he was playing, who was he? Nigel. And he kind of dissed me in the process, but I'll take it from David, because he said, I had this word and I can't remember what it was, and I was so afraid to play it against Nigel. I said, would you have played it against me? He says, I would have put it right down.
Oh.
Thanks, David. Okay. Haven't you watched my scores on Aerolith, David? So, yeah, so sometimes when you're playing somebody that you feel very intimidated by, you don't play the way you should play. So I wouldn't be surprised if we just see dozen go down, or even doze.
I
which would be sad.
believe it was northing was the word that he wasn't sure of.
Northing?
Northing, as in the
Northing.
direction
I
north.
think you're
Yeah.
right. And it takes an S. All of those ing direction words take an S.
The ings do. I think eastern, western, northern, and southern, one of them doesn't take an S.
All
I
right.
can't remember.
All right.
Maybe you can check just for trivia purposes.
North. Okay. Eastings. Well, we know Eastings. We know all the ings do. So Easterns is only earnests, sarsenet and a center.
There you go. Okay, so even after the update, that is still the same. So there's your trivial
And Westerns
fact
we know
there.
is good because it's also a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eastern is the only one. Very good remembering, Jesse.
Well, this is a memory game, so we have to memorize some things, right?
I know. Now, yeah. So very, very clearly, he doesn't know. Doesn't.
And the other thing to think about is the longer you hesitate and wait for a word,
Yeah.
the more likely you're telegraphing that you're not sure of it. But in David's case, he's going to know if a word is a word, and it's not going to affect his decision making. But for anyone who's perhaps not at a level quite as high as David Eldar, if someone is waiting this long to play a word, then you're certainly going to think about
Yeah.
challenging the word.
I
in
hardly
this.
think that Mark is trying to psych him out.
Yeah.
And there's nothing right now on David's rack. The only bingo he could possibly have is breviers through an E, which is not available to him.
Yeah, okay, so Zev has confirmed that it was northing, so yes, my memory is good.
Thank you, Zev.
And JR, no, you can't chain the word to have ha 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 over and over again. There is just ha ha.
Sly Dog 93, will you marry me, lady commentator? Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God. I have a second husband in the works. Thank you, Sly Dog. I like 3 carrots and nothing less. Absolutely no cushion cut. Thank you. Who would have thought when I woke up this morning?
You'd have another husband.
And I
That's
have another
amazing.
husband.
You have 2, and I have yet to find one.
I share. I bet you like 3 carrot cakes. As
No.
I knew someone was going to make a pun on the carrot. I knew it. Good going. Oh, fat wheezy woman. Oh my goodness.
And that's a
So
timeout for you.
unkind. So unkind. Oh, discard. She is mine. I love it. We're having a fight. Better be careful. Someone's getting deleted a lot. You're soon going to get kicked out. And you don't want to miss this.
Okay, he's putting down doesn't.
Do it,
there
do
you
it,
go.
do it.
There you go.
He did it.
There you go.
Except he didn't do the math. And it's slightly better if he puts the D on the double letter rather than off of the DI. That's a slight mistake for 4 points.
And David is checking it, so
Yeah, absolutely. It's over 100 points. Of course he's going to check it.
it's a safe decision here, given that you don't lose your turn in Collins for challenging. You just lose 5 points by these rules.
But isn't that interesting? He's going to get his 5 points back for doesn't the way he played it is 101, and if he had put the D on the double letter, it would have been 105. So there's 4 points that he's lost out on. But isn't that interesting? I mean, he sat there for a good 5 minutes trying to decide which one to play, and you're so nervous on board 1. And maybe he did the math 14 times in his head and he got it wrong every single time. I mean, these things happen, so we have to be charitable. It's very, very difficult up on that board. And, you know, Mark, who we don't even know, I don't know if he's ever been on a Game 1, and certainly not live, broadcast on Twitch and all that. So you have to give him a lot of credit for holding his equanimity. Now David is facing a 103-point deficit, which is not something he has looked at a lot in this entire week. We'll have a quick
So
look at
he's
his
got
rack.
a sizey lead
Oh,
here.
but he's got his bingo. He's got his comeback bingo. Now, it would have been very interesting if we were playing the other rules, and would he have challenged it knowing he had a comeback bingo? We'll have to ask him that later. Oh, he doesn't have a comeback bingo. Originally I'd seen it as 2 E's on the rack, but he's got the B. So he has nothing to come back with, so all the more reason for him to challenge. It was absolutely the right thing to do.
So David's got to figure out a way to declutter here. He's got some decent letters for the most part, but that B and the V together, certainly not ideal in this position, being down by just over 100 points.
I can tell you're Canadian. The polite reserve of your country is legendary. It is. We are lovely, lovely people, are we not, Jesse? Except for
Yes.
my neighbor occasionally. Benjamin Bloob says he's taken Jesse, sorry. We love you,
Michael
Benjamin. We miss you.
Pearl, the answer for that is 5-point challenge per word. So if you challenge a word, it's 5 points lost if that word ends up being valid, and 5 more for each additional word.
All right, so let's see what we got for our Australian boy. Frib is one possibility, making reach and setting up a hook. Oh, he is.
He's playing Brevis.
He's playing
Okay.
Brevis. All right.
Scores, certainly.
Let's see how dangerous that is. The-
Quiet is going to be coming down here, I would say, in about 10 seconds. That's not good for David, actually.
Oh my goodness, we might be seeing a little David and Goliath action happening on this board.
Except David is not David in this case. David is Goliath, and Mark is David,
Yeah.
if we're using that story. That's amazing.
Okay.
Lyserg, if the word isn't correct and someone challenges, that word gets taken off the board and that player loses their turn. So there is a huge penalty, assuming
Oh.
you make an incorrect play. And
Come on, Mark. Come on, Mark.
Flieg, we love our Prime Minister, and as much as we'd love to help you out, we're going to keep him, I think. So I think you guys just need to figure out your system and make it better.
Let's not, please not get political, because if you get me started on he whose name is a bridge word, I will bridge the game. All right. I would like to be a vein in Mark's body right now. I would like to know what's going on with that heart rate of his, because how could you? Okay, I don't know.
He's probably
Woo!
super nervous. I can't imagine he's ever played on board 1 before. So
Come on, you can do it. You can do it.
I think he's doing
He's
it.
gonna
Yeah.
do it. He's gonna do it.
Attaboy.
Come on. And okay, let's watch David's face. Let's watch his face. Come on.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. You can see. Yeah.
There we go. Bingo.
The eye roll. Yeah.
Oh, now we have head shaking for a different reason. Game 1, we had it for I got so lucky, and now it's like I get so unlucky. And now what we were talking about, not saying swear words out loud. I think this is a good time for us not to invoke a swear word on behalf of David.
If anyone out there can read lips, I don't think you even have to know how to read lips. That's certainly frustrating and would put just about anyone on tilt.
Hey, we're down to 12 tiles in the bag, folks. So David's down by 160 points, or 50, considering for some reason, my quackle is different than my producer's quackle.
Assuming that Mark can hold on here and pull out the game, this will be his biggest win of the tournament for sure, and this will be
His life
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
tournament.
Oh yeah, even that.
God.
And this will be one of David's only losses. On top of that, he's only got 3 right now. This will be only his 4th. He's basically
This could be the
dominated.
beginning of the end. This could be like the game where David Eldar starts unraveling. Not.
Yeah, and
He'll move on.
And Mr. Ben Bloom, it's mean, but it is fun to laugh. I would say the Schadenfreude is certainly in effect at this point in time.
Oh, not for me. I'm just having some good fun. But you know what? As announcers, if you ever watch a hockey game or you watch a tennis match where someone's getting routed, it's really, really tough on the announcers because there's really not much to talk about. When you're having a tournament where someone's running away from it, it's really, really hard to build momentum. What's that word?
Momentum, is that what you were
That's
trying
not
to say?
the word. Like what's going to happen? And oh my God. And
Suspense?
Suspense. Thank you. So we actually kind of, not that we don't care who wins or loses, but if the front runner is going down a little bit, it actually makes the tournament a bit more interesting to talk about. But we wish David extremely well. He would be a very, very worthy champion.
Admiral, no writ wouldn't help him come back in this case. And in fact, he would lose his turn because WROE is not a word, so that would get challenged off. All the words that are formed when you put letters down have to be valid in order for it to stay on the board when there is a challenge. Ben, I believe Mark's rating is in the 1400s, so this is a 600 rating point difference, which makes the accomplishment even bigger. And Mark is doing actually a really reasonable, great play here, making a high score plus blocking the last obvious bingo line.
Ish, because we know XO is good in Collins.
Yeah, he'd have to have a really nice underlap there. And I think David was even ready for this already by playing Mog to open up that lane on the left. He has 2 A's, so...
Yeah. As far as I know, he had nothing to block it. The only bingo he had was through a Y, oxygenic.
He has no O, so something like a ward would be an obvious play, but I don't know if there's even anything he could use to... No, there's not really any of the lanes to open up, so at this point he just needs to score.
No, he doesn't even need to. He needs to breathe. He can slide under the table. He's going to win this game. In Collins, Oxen takes W, and Boxen is good as well, I believe.
Waxen
and
lots
Boxen,
of inflections there.
No,
tournament structure, Leisberg is round robin. It's a modified round robin, so depending on where players are in the standings, they get repaired against other players performing similarly well in rounds to come. But there's no playoff format this year. It is just round robin and vying for, I think more than 5 places for money. I can't remember in Collins, but they're vying for money.
All right, so let's try to think of some strategy here. There are 6 unseen tiles. David has 3 A's and a W and a Y. So if he plays away, he will leave 2 in the bag. Not that he necessarily has a place to play away, other than the A hook he just sets himself up for next to Mog. Ag is a good word. Ideally, what he wants to do is to create another opening on a different quadrant of the board so that he's got unblockable lanes. But I don't really see anywhere where that's going to happen anytime soon. I can see 9s through the MI as a possibility. I can see, are there any O's left? There's 2 O's left to create OB and making a bingo off or through the T from Fab. But that's really about it. He also wants to look at what's left in the bag and start anagramming very, very quickly as to what possible words are available to him to play with what's left in the bag. That's why we keep track of all the tiles, especially for the end game, so we know statistically what possibility of words that we can play based on what's left in the bag.
And just to respond to a few things in here, Admiral, I think even we don't know what a lot of these words mean because our priority is just memorizing that they are words as opposed to what they mean. It's valuable mental space that we could use to memorize more words. And then Deckard, I believe haha, if I remember correctly, is a type of shrub. That one I think is a shrub. So it would pluralize.
Well, we can put fences around a shrub, right? So, like, I'm not totally off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe haha is a shrub, so it would take an S
because
it's a noun.
I think it's over us. Oh, no, I'm looking it up now. I can't, define ha. Used to represent laughter. No, there's another one. I think I have to look it up in Ziziva.
So
it's a recessed landscape design element that creates a vertical barrier.
Okay, so a fence.
A fence.
Okay.
While preserving an uninterrupted view of the landscape, which can include shrubbery beyond.
Okay. There you go.
So we actually are both right.
So log has gone down to make it really difficult to play anything there. And really, the only lane that's somewhat obscure but possible is TO something and then OBE for a triple word score kind of bingo. But at this point, I'm not seeing it. Disquiet could be played with a blank D from David Eldar's rack, but I doubt he's going to do that.
Oh, yes, fine. Does he?
David's hand is covering the rack, but it should be AISTTY blank for his 7 letters.
What are the other twos? Okay. We only see 5 tiles for Mark for some reason. But we have seen him kind of be quite late to put them on. You know, people have different styles of how they put their tiles on the rack. I don't know if you've noticed when I walk around some of the younger players, sometimes I'll see them have the tiles sideways and upside down, which I find really, really distracting, but that's how their brain would work. It's very interesting to watch, and some people have different styles as to how they put the tiles back onto the rack. Some of them, like in this case, we only see 5 tiles for Mark. Now, I'm not exactly sure why. Oh, because he only has 5 tiles.
Oh, he is playing Disquiet, so I guess just going for the score here.
All right.
He's essentially decided just to try and
I think I
a
missed
little
turn.
bit cut down on the spread. I think he's accepted at this point that he's clearly going to lose this round, but try not to give up as much spread.
All right. You know, I think I missed a turn. That's what's going on here. I missed log. There you go. Okay. So you got Disquiet. Perfect.
And yes, Admiral, the salt was real after Quiet for sure. You can't blame him though. That's not supposed to happen at that point. It's not the most probable occurrence, but you know what? He's had a very improbable beginning to this tournament.
Oh,
so
did he say something naughty? In the turn before, Mark missed a very pretty play, Enolic, off the dozen and oxen to make logo and
Yeah.
Enolic. Endgame is very important. And also play a little bit with David's head. Like, yeah, I'm way ahead. Now, we don't have a time, what's going on, how much time he's got left. But you know what? You have every right to take as much time as you want to pad your spread and take your time to play your turn. Don't just play quickly.
So with that, we'll just get our final score set up here shortly. David's obviously just a little bit of a shake of the head and just instantly looking, probably going to analyze a few turns here, but on his end, there's really not much to analyze or talk about. I don't see anything glaring on David's end. He just really didn't have much going his way this time, but that's, even he would say that's maybe a little bit of variance balancing out because he went on an unbelievable early run. At one point, he was at 18-1, I believe, was his record. He had a 5-game cushion on the rest of his division. He was doing that well, so.
You got to give Mark a lot of
Yeah.
credit too. Such equanimity, first time on board 1, playing this guy who's just been an absolute machine.
Yeah.
Putting down a word that he clearly wasn't sure about, but just went for it. And that's pretty ballsy and that's pretty fantastic. So a well-deserved win. So yes, he had better tiles, but he played them. How many times do you have the better tiles and you don't play them properly?
Yeah, and then just to answer the question, the game is over. They neutralized the clock since all the tiles were used, so at this point they're using their phones to check plays and see what they missed and what they got right, if there's any other possibilities. So there's no issues now that the game is over.
Yeah, they can look at
But they are totally allowed to use their phones now. But during the game, you are quite right. That would be cheating, and it would be a suspendable offense. And we have had players suspended, but not for using phones. So I don't think
Well,
anyone is that.
we do have rules about going to the bathroom, for example, where you might have planted your phone or some other dictionary. You are not allowed to go to the bathroom until you've had your play. You've played your words, and then you have not picked your new tiles. So that's actually a pretty neat way of preventing you from actually going up and looking up your rack, because you don't have your full rack. You've made your play. You only have your, let's say, 2 or 3 tiles left on your rack. You go to the bathroom, then you come back, and then you pick up your tiles. So there's no way that you can look up. You can look up words on the board to see if it takes